Welcome to Business Insights. I'm your host, Bruce May, and today we have one of my favorite guests, Bob Keplinger. Welcome to the show again.
Glad to be here, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
Bob is with ActionCOACH, and I love business coaching. I think it's a real asset for a lot of business owners, particularly a lot of people that are just getting started. We talk about that learning curve, and as you say,
yeah, we're always on a learning curve.
Yeah.
If we think that we haven't, if we've gotten to that point where we've arrived and we've learned it all, we certainly haven't. And
exactly.
There's always something for us to be studying or learning.
I've been in business for 30 years, and I learned more last week than I'd learned in the week before that.
Yeah.
It never stops.
And that's how we keep growing. And the key is if we want to stay ahead of our competition and we want to stay ahead in our business, we have to understand that there's time each week that we must dedicate to learning something new or learning a new way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask you today specifically because we do run a lot of segments here with you, and we're running down a lot of rabbit trails. But I want to try to focus every segment on one particular thing. And we were talking before the show about attitude and how important that is.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you work with your clients in that?
It's a great word, attitude, and what we do with it as far as how we work with business owners is there's something out there that we teach, and it's called an identity iceberg. And the things that we teach and we educate off of is an iceberg is you can see about a third of it floating above the water, but the other 66 or 67% is below the water, and it's the thing we can't see. And so from an outside perspective, what we see when we interact with each other in public or in a workplace is we really see behavior, which is just really actions and results. And we don't understand sometimes why someone has a certain behavior or why they acted a certain way or why we either have good results or bad results. And to really understand how we improve that, how we improve our behaviors, and how we improve our results is to look at the identity iceberg underneath the surface. And ultimately it starts at the very core of things with your identity. But I'll work down into it a little bit.
Okay.
Right underneath the waterline is our skills, and it's those things that we think we're good at. And we've learned that over time. And with a skill, if we think we're good at cooking, we'll tend to invite people over and cook our meals and serve them because we think that's a skill. Now, we don't see that skill that person has or that belief in that skill that they have because what we see is, hey, it's great food.
The meal, yeah.
Right, exactly. And so right underneath the skill is the beliefs. And so it's what we think we're good at. And it's a real important piece because sometimes we believe we have a skill simply because we were in the 4th grade and we got 100 on a math test, and all of a sudden we believed we were really good at math. Well, we might have got a 70 on the English test, and so we started categorizing in our own mind that I'm not good at English, but I'm really good at math. And that perpetuates till the point that we thought it was such a skill that when we got into a senior in high school and we made a bad grade on a math test, we would say, oh no, that's that was a trick question. I'm so good at this. And so right underneath your beliefs is your values. And it's what we place on life. It's those things we place on life. So someone who's really monetarily focused is going to look at being more career oriented. They're going to do those things that produce monetary gain, as opposed to someone who had a value of a relationship, a real tight-knit relationships.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, what it all boils down to is what our identity is. And when the room's dark and there's no one else, it's what we say, I am this. And one of the things I coach with business owners is I have a lot of business owners that are really good at a skill set. So they're a great attorney, or they're a great accountant, or they're great at manufacturing a certain type of product. They're great at engineering. But when I ask them, what are you? I'm looking for that identity, and they may tell me that I'm a CPA. Well, as part of owning a business, part of your identity has to be, I'm a business owner. And it has to get to a point where it precedes the skill set.
Right.
And when you understand that identity, then your attitude can come out as a
Right.
business owner as opposed to being just a CPA.
Right. You know, this is so fundamental. It comes back to this whole idea of, you know, whether or not you really are an entrepreneur.
Right.
Do you have the mindset to be an
Right.
entrepreneur? Right. I was watching Bar Rescue this weekend, which I love to watch.
Yeah.
It's a great show. Great coach. You know, and he had a bar owner who was making no money during the day, none, and he had 5 people in this bar. And his employees, right? And so when John was saying you need to just shut down during the day, there's no business here, and there's not going to be. You know, this needs to be a nighttime bar. And his reaction, the owner, was immediately well, they depend on that money. And immediately I'm going like, okay, you're not thinking like a business owner.
Well, we require people to live above the line, and that's a below the line comment. That's denial.
Yeah.
And look, one of the worst things we can do is live in a world of denial.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to understand from an identity standpoint, if we're a job owner and not a business owner, then you think in those realms.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the way to reward the people and the jobs that you create is to have a stable foundation so that they know they can count on that business to provide a living for them.
Right.
And so you have to be not an attorney, but you have to be a business owner to take care of people.
Right.
And it's a critical distinction.
Right. You got to focus on the profits, or there's nothing there for the people.
Absolutely.
Right. And
Absolutely.
the irony was, of course, they flipped the whole thing around. These people lost hours where they were getting such a minimal amount of pay, it wasn't really worth it anyway. And they didn't say it in the program, but I'm pretty sure based on the amount of business that they generated in the evenings, I mean, it went through the roof, and they're all getting tips. I'm pretty sure they were making more money and working less hours.
Absolutely.
So see, the outcome ended up being a win-win for everybody.
And it's another thing that it's another thing we can talk about in a later segment, Bruce. But it's about having fun at work. And imagine being one of 5 people in that bar with nobody there, doing that day in and day out. You know you're taking money. The attitude that's there is horrible,
Right.
and you can't keep or retain good people
Right.
in that kind of environment.
And that's an important part too. Owners have to become themselves good coaches.
That's exactly right.
Right. And I love that. At the beginning, John looked at all the employees, and they did have a terrible attitude across the board in that case. And he pointed at him and said, "And I'm going to change you."
Right.
And he did.
Yeah.
And it was all just coaching and getting them on board, and the attitude change was so obvious. They went from all being miserable and complaining about everything to being happy and engaged.
Yeah, and the interesting thing that we need to see as business owners when it comes to shows like, there's a lot of reality shows out there with some coaching that's going on right now, whether it's restaurants or bars, or used car dealerships, whatever it may be. Honestly, it all started with a business owner questioning their identity and asking for help.
Right.
It's a first step, because who am I? What do I have? And again, if you're a job owner, you're not going to ask those questions. If you're a business owner, you're looking for, how do I take care of my people so my people can run my business?
Right. So the whole concept of identity is crucial, and it's a starting point for you
Absolutely.
in working with clients, right? Well, we've got a bunch of rabbit trails here. So what I want to do is come back in some other segments and look at some of these things. I want to talk to you more about above the line and also having fun at work. So come back and look for additional segments here on Business Insights about business coaching with Bob Keplinger. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bruce.